Hello and welcome to Story X Story, the podcast by Maya Mada that dives deep into stories across pop culture, plus gives you advice on creating your own. It's episode 185. We're back from the break, and I am your co-host, Nigel.
I am Tazziii, content creator and co-host.
And as always, we are bringing you interesting discussions with diverse voices and to help us out as we delve deep into the mind for what will surely be an existential crisis in waiting is Maya Mada Illustrator Pinali. Pinali, welcome back to the show.
Hello, nice to be back again.
Good to have you. It will make the updates I'm about to do a bit more valid because we're all here, basically. But yeah, no, thanks for joining us. We last had you on for another Pixar. In fact, I think Pixar's last release, Elemental. So that was episode 161. So we had a good chat about that. And yeah, I feel this is going to be a interesting discussion for Inside Out. So you can subscribe to Story X Story wherever you get your podcast from. That includes Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also send us your feedback and questions in a variety of ways. You can send us a voice message on our Spotify for Podcasters page. You can email us at studio77@myamada.com, or you can chuck your thoughts at us on social media. So we are at myamada on Twitter/X, but I think we just now accepted it's forever and will always be Twitter, My Matter TV on Instagram and TikTok, or Life of a W Gamer on Instagram and TikTok, or Tazziii on everything else. You can also join our Studio 77 Discord to be part of the My Matter community and consider becoming a Studio 77 member to support the work that we do at My Matter and get exclusive access to content and some events, particularly content as we work on this new story. So before we get into all the story discussions today, let's update you with the latest from the My Matter universe. We have an update from outside the My Matter universe, but related to Tazziii. And before we went on the break, Tazziii let us know about a project that she's working on and using her voice for that had a Kickstarter project attached. We're now back from the break. The Kickstarter has ended. Tazziii, how did it go?
Well, drum roll, please. It was a successful Kickstarter. We actually reached the stretch goal to get two extra episodes than originally planned. So there'll be a total of 9 more episodes being made, and that is the disappearance of Lydia Fontaine, which is I don't know how to describe it. Fantasy cyberpunk mystery thing. It's fun. It's really good.
That works.
It's really good. It features a crow. You can listen to the pilot episode actually to get an idea of what it's about and what we're going to be recording. But we're going to I think we're starting recording later on this year, going into next year. But yeah, I am a guest voice on it, and it's my first it's going to be paid voice acting gig because we successfully funded it, which means we actually can
You have a
get
budget.
paid for our voice. Yeah, we have a budget.
The magic words, there is a budget.
Which obviously allows us to then all take some time out to actually do it because we're not need to eat. So yeah, it's very exciting. It's like a all-star cast of podcasters and various other voicey people that use their voicey to talky on things. So yeah, go check it out and definitely go check out everyone else involved. Some really cool podcasts and projects that each of us have outside of the show. Oh my god, I cannot wait for it to be made. Because I don't know anything other than the pilot. I don't know what happens. I maybe know a bit more about my character, but I don't know what actually happens. So yeah,
So you're finding out as you're reading the lines.
yeah, and the character's the complete opposite to me as well. So
Okay.
that's interesting. She's some cryptic tech CEO,
Right.
has zero care about your privacy type person.
Okay. Sounds familiar.
Oh boy.
Yeah, cool. All right. Look forward to listening to that and every so often hearing, oh, damn, really? Oh, wow. Cool. So that is one thing that Tazzii's involved with. The other Kickstarter project was the one done by My Matter earlier in the year for Origins Against All Odds. So this is the new series within the My Matter universe that features real life characters on the team that we have turned into anthropomorphic characters and are working through and making standalone stories about how they made it to the My Matter universe. So it's all very meta. We're starting with Tazziii for a reflective, hope-filled manga about pursuing your creative career goals in the face of resistance from doubters and the world around you, or most of the world around you. So yeah, we're working on the story. So we are late. That's on me. So just finishing the script this year. This year, definitely finishing the script this year. So I can, I can guarantee that this month, and then making the transition to artwork, and then that's when I hand over to Pinali to actually make it look good because we can't sell my notes on random pieces of paper. But yeah, it's coming together. Yeah, it's looking good. I feel it's at that stage where, because we've been like talking about it, and then when you actually get down to write the outline and then the script, and it's actually taking shape, and you can see how things fit together. So yeah, it's looking good. And once we get to the artwork stage, then we'll actually have things to show. So then the Kickstarter backers will be sharing those updates. Also, people in our Discord members, and in the wider community, and then on social. So yeah, we're almost at that point where you'll start to see it come together, and then we'll be able to put it in people's hands. Or we got digital versions as well. So in the meantime, you can also check out the stories we have already done in the My Matter universe. So from Samurai Chef, Serious Hot Lunch, and Serious Through the Fog as well. They're all available online and whatever the next in-person event will do. And yeah, they're all ages stories set within our shared television network universe. We've also got some plans to come for the rest of the year for the Do I Look Like a Gamer campaign, which is our yearly initiative promoting inclusion and diversity in the video games industry and showcasing pathways into the industry for young and aspiring talent. So each year we get started with our snapshot of 40 players and makers. And that is us showcasing the representation that does exist as a way to inspire future generations of diverse talent. And then we go into the events over the year. So we've done a bunch so far. We've been at Comic-Con, we've been at Barclays Game Frenzy, and then that's sort of in between our own events. So we did our Games Industry Explained at King's headquarters in London. We had our Cupcake and Gamepad Social most recently at Samsung KX, also in London. The events are quite London-centric, where we're working on that with more sponsorship. We can spread out more. But to come, we have our Friends and Family Game Design Jam. So that'll be the end of summer, thereabouts. Still working to pin down that exact date and venue. And then we'll have those tickets available for people to come and join us. Whether you're a young person, aspiring games developer, family member supporting a young person, to get involved in this activity where we set a challenge to design a tabletop game and people work in groups. So again, friends, family, or even if you turn up on the day, we'll put you in a group so you might meet some new friends as well. And the whole idea is to encourage younger people and family, supporting them to participate, to learn more about the game design process. So everyone's a bit more clued up about what it involves and understands that it's not just sitting at home playing video games. Ironically, you get less time to do that when you're involved in making games. So we've got that to come. And then in October, a bit further down, we've got, or it's not our event, but we'll be at the Festival of the Girl, which is October 5th and 6th. And we'll be looking to bring our manga as well as the Do I Look Like a Gamer campaign to this event, which is all about inspiring young girls aged 7 to 11 to let them see the different types of industries, different types of cultural things they can get involved with. Obviously, we're bringing that video game representation, but also the comics as well. So that should be good. It's the first time we've been to the event, and I feel it will be a good opportunity to inspire young minds. So thank you to Rocksteady Studios for their support and sponsorship of this campaign for another year. It's sponsorship like theirs that allows us to bring this whole thing together and make it sustainable so we can keep doing it year on year. So very appreciative of their support that allows us to highlight those diverse roles in games and the people that work in it, and look forward to working with them, with other organizations as well, as we get to do this year on year and increase the scale, the scope, the impact as well, and hopefully do things outside of London, because we are aware there are places outside of London. So yeah, thank you to Rocksteady Studios and anyone that comes on board in future. Looking at our Studio 77 platform, so it's our digital platform on Twitch where we talk to people across the creative industries, comics, video games, animation, cosplay. We also play games ourselves. So each month we do the Studio 77 report where Tazziii and I recap the latest MyMad announcements and event news in a live recording on Twitch. Then we have an edited version on YouTube. So, take your pick. You can come watch us record it live and just see the random chats that we have, or you can watch the bit without bloopers, basically, on YouTube. And then we also have casual conversations with comic creators. So this is a monthly series where I talk to a different comic creator about the craft of making comics, usually on the first Tuesday of each month, but the schedule can shift. Definitely follow us on Twitch, follow us on socials, and you'll get the notifications. For August, I've been talking to Ian Richardson, who's a British comic artist. Met him, actually, how did I meet him? I don't know. You'll have to listen and find out, because that'll be the first question I ask him. And then for September, we've got Tazio Bettin, who is an Italian illustrator. I definitely remember where I met him because it was just last year and it was at Malta Comic Con. So we're having a chat with him. And then our episodes are available on Twitch VOD for 14 days after the live stream. And then we'll put highlights on socials, and then Studio 77 members will eventually be able to get access to the full recording after it has disappeared from Twitch VOD. And then we've also got our games nights where each month we play a different game for your amusement. Sometimes well, sometimes not so well, but always fun. And you can catch those usually at the end of the month. Again, schedules can shift. Twitch VOD for 14 days after that. And then we're working on putting up different highlights on our YouTube channel. So that's always a fun time. And if you're a young, aspiring creative professional or you know one, then check out the My Matter Showrunners Work Experience Program. So we're creating opportunities for young people aged 16 and up to work with our team across comic production, events, and content creation. So it's an opportunity for people to feed into things we're doing, whether it's like marketing, video, content, editing, illustration, concept art. We've got a few very keen artists, and also some interesting. Actually, I need to send you some things, Pinali, of some stuff that's been done. I don't know if you saw
Oh,
some of the
cool.
concept artwork.
I don't think I did. I think if you could send that over, that would be great.
Yeah,
I'd love to see it.
we'll do that. This is the meeting, the team meeting. Yeah, I'll do that, and then so we've got some young people being able to work with us and see how things get put together and gain that experience that they can take forward for their first steps in creative industries. So if you're interested in that, email us showrunners@mymatter.com to find out more. All right, so now you are caught up with the My Matter universe. Let's talk about some of the stories that we've been enjoying this week, and it's probably going to be an extended one because it's been a while. We've been on a break.
So we're going to have a little spoiler-free discussion about what stories people have been reading, watching, or playing. So we'll start with our guest, Finale.
Okay, so I've mainly been watching some Netflix, like catching up on some new Netflix seasons that have come out. There was the end of Sweet Tooth, which is something that I've been following since it came out, which is it's kind of cute, but it's also kind of dystopian, and it's about like a world where hybrids started being born, so like humans with animal features. And this one
Oh,
hybrid who is a deer boy goes on like a journey to try and figure out where the hybrids came from, why they're here, and why there's this disease that's killing out normal humans. So the final season came out of that, and I watched it, and I was pretty happy with the ending. So that's good. I like it when there's an ending that I like, and it has its stumbling blocks like most things do. I mean, but overall, I was happy with it. So I would recommend checking it out for some cool dystopia. Though I suppose people might be getting a bit tired of dystopias, but anyway, as well as that, I watched the most recent season of Dragon Prince: Mystery of Erebos, which in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and so it has a sort of similar style to it, where it's like that sort of faux anime kind of look. But this one is animated in 3D, and then it has like a filter on it to make it look 2D, which is kind of interesting. But that's been going on for quite a few years. And this is like I think it was like the 5th season overall that just came out,
Oh
or maybe
wow.
the 6th. I don't know. But
I've watched the first
yeah,
season.
yeah, there's like a bunch of it out. They come
Yeah,
out, I think,
I didn't
like every
realize.
year, or yeah, there's quite a lot of it. And yeah, I feel like it's building towards the finale finally. It definitely has I feel like it has some tonal issues where like it has these really intense, serious things going on, and then it cuts to like some goofy shenanigans. And it's a bit like, wow, that was really intense and emotional, and now we have these little creatures going, "Rah!" And it's kind of like whiplash, but like I enjoy it. I like a good fantasy universe, and there's cool world building. It has dragons, obviously, and I love dragons. So that is what I've been keeping up on. Oh, and the My Hero Academia manga just ended, which I've been keeping up with that series for the last 6 years. So that was cool.
Wait, it ended. Is
Yeah,
there
it
Yeah.
no
finished
more?
the manga.
Oh, sorry. I'm always surprised when a long running series actually ends. So
Yeah,
like,
no,
I
yeah, it
didn't know that
actually
was
ended,
allowed.
which is nice. Like it's not, yeah, it didn't like overstay its welcome, I feel like. And I feel like the ending was a little rushed, but overall I was happy with that ending as well. So two endings that I was pretty happy with.
I'll give specifically Nigel, though, Pinali, feel free to hop in. Free guesses how I know that My Hero Academia ended.
Twitter.
No.
Uh, I was going to say some young person at a workshop, but we haven't done any
Is that your
workshops.
guess? Is that
Yes.
No, not some young person. Last guess.
uh,
You're gonna laugh
oh,
when the answer is 'cause it revolves around something that I am utterly obsessed with.
something One Piece related.
Bingo. Though I did give you a massive clue.
Yeah, you did.
Ah,
Because I saw the news that Oda's doing like a tribute to My Hero Academia ending.
Oh,
that's so
okay, okay.
cute. I love how all those manga authors like draw gifts for each other. I think that's so cute.
Yeah,
Mm.
I was like, oh, that's sweet. And that's because my Instagram feed literally
It's
revolves
all
around
One
One
Piece.
Piece.
Yeah, there you go.
I showed
I've
Nigel
actually
my like
seen
For
it.
You page thing, and it was the only thing, like the whole thing was One Piece except one thing, which is ADHD related. So that's how you sum up my personality. I do need to watch the rest of Sweet Tooth though, because I remember really enjoying that. But Netflix is terrible at advertising. I don't know why they've got so bad at like letting you know about shows.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's like you'll just log on and it's like, oh, new season of this, and it's like, oh, I had no idea that was happening. I guess I'll watch it. It
Yeah,
doesn't even
mine
tell you
doesn't.
that.
Yeah, it doesn't even tell me about shows that I like. It tells me about stuff I really don't care about. I'm like,
What a great algorithm.
yeah. But I did watch The Imaginary on Netflix,
Mm.
which is an animated, I don't know if it's just like inspired, like anime style, or if it is actually anime, but it is a like British inspired town, but it's
Mm.
about a young girl and her imaginary friend Roger. Not Roger, Roger. Yeah, who has been imagined by Amanda, and they have a thrilling adventure. It's deep. It's very deep. There's like an unexpected presence that risks ruining their life as it is. And as it starts, like you follow Amanda in her home with her mother and recently departed father. By departed, I mean like dead, departed, just to clarify.
Not just like gone.
Not just gone, yeah.
A holiday.
Didn't catch a plane, but did catch a flight somewhere.
Mm.
But yeah, so it's like very moving and it's all about like the power of imagination. So yeah, if you're someone very interested in imagination and storytelling, which I know at least us three are,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I definitely recommend it.
Well, that sounds interesting.
And it's like just one of those like beautiful, moving, made me cry kind of things. It's got like a very like Studio Ghibli-esque feel to it, like some
Oh
inspo
yeah, I'm just
there.
looking it up. It really does look like the style is very Ghibli-esque.
Yeah. I have also been watching Grownish on Disney Plus, which is
Oh,
I guess the sequel to Blackish and
yeah.
Mixedish.
That's the daughter. No, the daughter's Mixish.
So this is also the daughter, but I've not watched Mixedish and I've only watched one
Neither
episode
have
of
I.
Blackish.
Yeah.
So I'm not 100%, but she's in college. And so I watched like the first couple of episodes of Blackish and it just didn't land with me.
Hmm.
And then so I was like, didn't give Mixedish a chance, which I probably should have. But Grownish, I'm vibing with.
Okay.
Like, I'm very much enjoying it. So I might like then go back and watch them in reverse.
Hmm.
It might help the others
Will
land
make more
better.
sense.
Yeah, I feel like this one maybe I connect with it more. Like it's more relatable to my own experiences. So I'm connecting with it more. And then maybe that will help me then connect with the other two because then I'll be used to the format. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I get what you mean. It's got a, or at least from what I've seen of Blackish, it's got a particular format. It feels like just one of those like family, specifically black family sitcoms showing like the well-to-do, wealthy-ish kind of family, and there's a particular structure and format.
Yeah, I feel like with Blackish it's so like American
Oh
based
yeah, I should have said
that
that
I
as well.
was
Yeah.
like it's just not quite, it doesn't quite like sit with me. And then like the humor, like I just wasn't, was it was a little jarring for me personally.
Mm.
And I was really disappointed actually because I really like everyone that's involved with it. So when it didn't land with me, I was like kind of sad. And then I never give Mixed a chance, but my friend highly recommended Grownish, and I'm very much like connecting with it. So I think it's going to get me used to the format, and I'm going to like then watch Mixed and then watch Blackish again. I feel like then at least I'm comfy with the format, and then I'll be able to like vibe with it better.
Mm.
That's my theory. We'll come back in a few
Keep us
months
posted.
but I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, it's like college setting and just a lot of like cultural references that are gettable and like I don't know, it's just so interesting and I think they've got like a really cool dynamic going on between the characters. And do you know what really bugs me when there's like such a beautiful cast? Like everyone's stunning. And I don't know if that's just a me thing, but everyone's just like
Because it because it feels like less real because you're not generally like in the
No,
world and there's a bunch of gorgeous people everywhere. Or
no, because I would say like at least my friendship group are all gorgeous. So maybe I'm biased, but it's they just are really like extra stunning. I feel like I don't know. I feel like I've said that about shows before, and sometimes it like distracts me from what's going on because I'm like, y'all so pretty. And I'm like, oh wait, I just wasn't listening because and do you know what? I feel like maybe because it's not even predominantly black. It's a very diverse group,
Mm.
but maybe more black people on a screen than I'm used to seeing on a screen at once. But they're just all just like gorgeous. I'm sorry. I sometimes I just can't get over. I mean, it kind of is like they're college students, and I feel like that's part of the vibe of the show. They are genuine. I think they make a point to say about a lot of them why like that they are pretty. It's kind of like that group of clicked together. Anyway, I also finished Jobless Reincarnation, so I'm up to date with that, and it's confirmed that another season is coming, which I love at the end of a series. Like when you finish and then it's like, the next one has been confirmed. And I'm like, woo, it's not going to get cancelled, especially with anime.
Yeah, I had that recently with what was it? Dungeon Meshi, Delicious in Dungeon.
Yes.
And then
Oh,
you get to the end of the season, it's like next one's confirmed, it's coming. You don't have to worry that it's getting cancelled.
yeah. Doubly so if it's a Netflix anime.
Yeah.
Like you're like, am I just gonna get my heart ripped out of me? Yes, happens all too many times, even if it's your favorite. Also been watching Zom 100, finished that, up to date with that, which is so good. I don't know, Nigel, if you've given it a chance yet, but I feel like you should. It's one that any entrepreneur should definitely give a
Yeah,
gander.
I remember you mentioned this in, if it wasn't the first episode of the season, it was near it. But yeah, it's on my radar. I haven't started it yet, but
Yeah.
it's still on the radar.
And the full season is out now, so at least you don't have
Even
to wait.
better.
Or we went to see Your Lie in April, the musical, in theatre, which was amazing.
Mm.
Like I cried so much. And I was in cosplay because it was one of the cosplay Sundays. So if you go and see it, I guess this Sunday,
quick.
because because it's getting cancelled early, unfortunately. Why does this always happen with anime stuff?
Oh, I walked past a poster, a couple of posters yesterday, and still had like Sunday 21st of September. I was like, nah, nope,
Ugh,
not anymore.
so
Oh,
disappointing.
that's so
But
sad.
it is so sad. I mean, the actual story is so
Really sad. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's sad that it got cancelled. So maybe I was crying for two things, but even though I didn't know yet. I've also been watching the new Spice and Wolf, which I really remember really loving Spice and Wolf way back. And so when I saw that there was a new one, I was very excited. I just love the dynamic between the two main characters. I don't know, it's just a fun traveling romance merchant thing. A lot of fun. And then the last two things I'll mention are video games. So I tried to play Valorant, and I don't get why people enjoy it. But I mean, everyone enjoys something different. I don't see the appeal. I will say the characters are cool, and like the tutorial is pretty cool. I liked the tutorial. It was like informative enough, but not in a condescending way.
Interesting. The whole hero shooter thing. I've never really given it a fair shake, but just the hero shooter thing, it just doesn't, because they put so much of the story into it. I'm like potentially interested in the story, but not the not the actual game that you're playing, the competitive shooter. So it's always been a conflict for me.
I mean, yeah, that's what I love about hero shooters, like the characters and the dialogue between them as you're playing. But for me, and the characters are cool. For me, Valorant though is maybe I'll watch if they bring out a Valorant anime. I'll watch that, and I just expect it to be good.
Yeah, I can see that.
They've set a standard.
Yeah.
And then a shooter that I do enjoy now. I'm now addicted to Call of Duty. Hopped on it because Modern Warfare 3 was added to Game Pass in time for the latest season 5. And I'm like, why did I not start playing this version sooner? Because it's everything I enjoyed about Call of Duty growing up, but new. So I feel like I've not felt like this anytime that I've tried any of the newer Call of Duties. Like the last time I felt like this playing a Call of Duty was like, I think we were still on like 360.
Actually, same.
Mate, yeah. I mean, I picked up a few on Xbox One, but it didn't feel. Yeah.
Last time I played a Call of Duty was on the 360.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, I played a few on the Xbox One. I just didn't really get into them. And this one, I'm like, it's making me excited for Black Ops 6 because Black Ops was always my like favorites. But yeah, I haven't even touched zombies yet. That's the wild thing. Good. So yeah, find me on Call of Duty for the foreseeable future while watching One Piece.
That's a very clear mental image, just you at the computer. Like, that's just it.
Yeah. One Piece on one screen, Call of
Yeah,
Duty on the
exactly.
other, lost to the world. I may go outside and get the sun because I do love the sun. Wait, what if I position it so that I'm like on my balcony getting
Ah,
the
It's
sun,
the
but the
real
screens
world.
are inside in the shade,
it's like a
so I can
plant.
still
You need
see.
the sunlight, you know?
Yeah, and then I'm getting free things that I'm addicted to: sun, Call of Duty, and One Piece. Life. So Nigel, yeah, sorry, I'm just like,
'Cause you were lost in that image for a second.
yeah. What stories, games, what you've been reading, watching, playing? I want to know.
So I've got some things that I have finished, or at least sort of got to a significant milestone. So I'll kind of skip through some things, and then a few things I'll kind of dwell on for a little bit. So I mentioned before we broke for the mid-season break that I've been making my way through Peaky Blinders because there's a new season, or there was a new season, like I think last year. But because I really enjoyed the show, I've actually gone back and rewatched the previous 5 seasons in ready for season 6 or 4 ready for season 5. I actually can't remember now. By the way, went back and watched them. It was a really good show. I really enjoy that show, but then I do have a bias for gangster shows. So I don't know what that says about me. But yeah, so it's a show about a bunch of gangsters in Birmingham around 1920s after the First World War, and then it sort of goes up to the second. What's interesting is it's the final season, and it will be interesting. So I'm now on the final season, so it'll be interesting to see how they tie things up. Notice the characters are like older and in different situations. So one of the things about those gangster or cartel shows is I've said this before, they're basically entrepreneur stories. That's kind of why I like them, but in some ways with more defined rules than actual entrepreneurship. But when they get to high status, what happens? And I feel we're at that stage. It'll be interesting because typically that's when I not necessarily lose interest, but I find the up and coming bit I'm more interested in. So it'll be interesting to see how they tie that all together. I've been in the cinema, saw Bad Boys Ride or Die. So they're still making those. Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, and I enjoyed it. You know what? It's sometimes you want to go to the cinema and just be entertained, and it gave that. And I don't expect anything more. I like Will Smith. Will Smith forever gets a pass for like Fresh Prince. I feel he's earned lifetime credit for me. So, but I did like this, and there's a particular scene. I won't go into spoilers, but the character of Reggie, for those who have seen the earlier ones, gets his moment. I'll just say that he absolutely gets his moment in that. What else have I been watching? I'm going with all the things I've been watching now. Rick and Morty, so the latest season of that. And I don't know what the general view is on Rick and Morty now, because I feel when it came out initially, it was like completely unique style of comedy, and now we're a bit more expecting of it. I feel some of the reaction to it is less than it might have been, but I really
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit more like I feel like the hype has kind of like gone down to a
Yeah,
simmer, and it's just sort of like, yeah, some people are enjoying it and some people don't, but it's not like this huge thing that it used
thing,
to be.
yeah.
Which, yeah,
Which is kind of the you can't help that because you can only be fresh and unique once, right? And then you just
yeah,
re-expect the formula. Because but I remember thinking I didn't enjoy the previous season as much, but I did really enjoy this season. It was like it felt consistent to me and had a nice mix of different types of jokes. And yeah, it's just I really enjoyed that. What else? Fallout. Dived into the Fallout series. Have either of you watched this? I can't remember who. I mean, I
Mm.
knew it was coming out, but I feel someone mentioned it on the show. I can't remember if it was Tazzy or
no,
another guest.
I'm sure I mentioned it before it came out, but I don't know if also another guest did. But
Yeah.
I still haven't watched it. I was really excited to watch it, but I don't have Amazon Prime.
Ah, okay, okay. That'll do it.
That
Yeah.
is a barrier
Yeah,
to
yeah. It's
watch
quite a
it.
big barrier.
This is the problem with streaming services. There's so many that it's
Yeah, it's
like,
so scattered.
which one?
yeah,
Yeah,
there's so many these days, and like if you want them all, you're gonna be spending like 100 a month on just
Yeah,
streaming
it's
services,
that's
and it's like
yeah,
that's so much money.
honestly.
yeah.
But you know what? It's good. I feel we're in the age of they figured out how to do video game adaptations. It feels very high production. I actually haven't played Fallout.
At all.
Actually, I don't know if that's true. I haven't played much Fallout. I
Okay,
don't know
yeah.
if it's completely true if I but I haven't played much Fallout, which is surprising because it's kind of my type of game. But I know like the general premise and everything.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
one of the things that I was keen to see with this is because what I know of Fallout is that there's not, or actually, we'll see if I know that there's not necessarily a main character, and because it's an
Mm.
open world game, it's kind of like make your own adventure kind of thing. So with those ones versus something like The Last of Us, where it's very much a a scripted story, I was wondering how they
Mm.
would do that, and I feel they've taken different areas in the game and kind of pulled them together through the characters that represent different areas, and I'm liking how they've. It's a very you have to be patient because I noticed from maybe the first couple episodes, and they're long episodes where it's basically like setting this thing up over here, setting this thing up over here, and now we're gonna blend them together and let the chaos
Ooh,
ensue.
That's an interesting way to do that. Yeah.
a perfect kind of story that I like. I Fallout. I've played some of it. I've watched a lot of people play it,
Mm.
and everyone plays it differently, right? But what I really like about Fallout is like there's a lot of lore around it.
Yeah, I'm getting that.
And
Yeah.
so you can make so much story because there's just all these bits of lore that you can make stories out of. So even though you might not have like a main protagonist because it's whoever you make, there is loads of things that
Yeah.
you can find that make up like a story. Like I remember playing one of them and like being really invested in this one like story that you could find through like side quests and piece together through like side quests and bits of paper or whatever you find, and you could like make up this story, and I was like really invested in it. I'm like, this has nothing to do with anything that I need to be doing to actually progress in this game.
But yeah, I'm liking it. It's definitely it's high substance and enjoying it. I haven't finished it, but working my way through it. So I'll end my bit with the anime portion of stories I've been enjoying. So One Piece, continuing going with that. Sort of basically, I'm like drip feeding One Piece episodes into my consumption, which is quite funny. So I feel I'm still within the bit I was in when I last left it, which is fine. I'm probably gonna start overlapping soon, but like stuff is coming back to my memory. So yep, expect me to continuously be updated on that at a snail's pace. Jujutsu Kaisen, continuing to watch that. What's interesting about that? It I was slightly annoyed by it at first, but then I kind of appreciated it as well, where it's doing the anime thing that I've always had a a bit of a grudge with a lot of exposition, and that's always bugged me a little bit. And there's some shows that I stopped watching because of that. I feel like it's a problem. Well, maybe problem is a bit strong, but it's a thing with anime. But then I find myself actually appreciating it here when they're explaining like the techniques and everything, and especially what it means versus a different character. Like there's a particular battle that happened, and it was like because I did this, they can do this all that, and I was like, actually, this helps. this is helping me
Yeah.
understanding what's going on. So I don't always like it, but I kind of appreciate what it's doing here.
I feel like with Jujutsu Kaisen, like you kind of need it because A,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
super complicated, and B, there's no way to get that information
mm,
without it, and it gets more relevant
yeah,
like as things go on, because then it'll be like, oh, that
yeah, exactly. That's
makes
what I've got
sense
the
because
feeling.
that like the pieces fall together.
Mm.
It's not exposition for exposition's
To
sake
say,
kind
yeah.
of thing.
No,
Yeah.
I get that because, like I said, at first I was starting to get a bit annoyed by it, but then I think I had a gap between episodes. I was like, actually, first of all, I appreciate this because I sort of forgot that kind of stuff. But then I can see, like, actually, you're explaining the moves, and I'm kind of in it because you're explaining it
Mm.
to me. So, fair enough that I can see. It just gives me. It's not like Dragon Ball Z, but it just gives me like flashbacks to watching the fights and being like, oh, this is a big one, and this person versus that person, and who's going to come out on top. It's giving me the similar feelings
Mm.
of that in a good way. They're not similar shows, but the feelings are a bit similar. And then Your Lie in April, I was there as well, so I saw that. That was really good, very good. I haven't seen that anime yet. I'm going to give myself a bit of time before I dive into sadness again. But I was really touched by the journey of the main character, and I'm like I sort of connected with that. I understand like parents passing and then you lose something and then have to kind of go again in a sense. So really resonated with that. And then yeah, just the sadness of it and just the production of it, the music and everything. Just very, very impressed with it. And just a shame it's ending early. So that, and then the last thing I'll say is an anime called Blue Lock, which is surprising that I haven't watched this because it's about football and interesting. So I learned about it at Develop, not this year's Develop, last year's Develop, and random. This is the most random introduction to an anime. So I got on a lift at Develop, and two guys got on the lift with me, and we just started talking. They had nothing to do with Develop. I think they were working like there were buildings, there was some building or something that had nothing to do with the event. Just started talking, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I make manga. This is what I do. Blah blah blah." And then one of the guys was like, "Oh, all right, anime. So it's like Blue Lock." And I was like, "I don't know what that is." And he was like, "Oh, it's about like football." And then I perked up. I was like, "Okay, cool. Tell me more." And I made a note of it and never went back to it. And I don't even remember why it came back to me. Maybe because I was at Develop again and I remembered that scene. Interestingly enough, when I was on the lift, I actually got off at the wrong floor and then had to go back on embarrassingly because I got off at the wrong floor because we were just talking.
Awkward.
Yeah, it was a bit awkward. But anyway, I started watching it. So it's about football. It's about Japan's search to find the best striker and put them on top of the world rankings and win the World Cup. And that's pretty much the premise. Because I'm watching this, I may have to accelerate the time that I watch Ted Lasso just to balance out, because from what I understand, Ted Lasso is a nice everyone working together kind of deal. This is ruthless. This is there's 200 of you. We only need one, and then we're gonna
Oh
put you
wow.
through the Squid Games
Yes,
to
I was
find the
just
one.
thinking Squid Games.
Yeah, you are thinking right. So, but what it does, apart from football, so I'm a massive football fan. So talking about exposition again, it does the thing about explain things, and I don't know if you're not a football fan whether you'd appreciate it. I feel you
Mm.
might, but it gets very technical, which I appreciate, but I wonder if someone who's not into it would. But what I really like is the anime thing it does, where the main character is kind of like nothing special, and he has to, or at least so far, I'm still relatively early, but he has to contend with one, finding his speciality in a room where everyone's just super powered and got amazing skills, but then also this question of individual ego versus the team and how you deal with that. And I like that contemplation, like, because he's a guy and he's always thinking about other people and like passing to them and getting them some of the glory. But then
Yeah.
he's in a situation where there's only one, so he's got to find his thing.
Yeah. Do you want to stand out or do you want to like play
Yeah,
support?
and that's an interesting question. So, but it's very contained within football. Like, it's very football heavy in a way that one of my favorite animes is Kuroko's Basketball, which is very much basketball, but I feel it's a bit broader than this is. This feels very much football focused, which I don't mind, but I just wonder how that would play with people who aren't football fans. So,
Mm.
yeah, that is our probably extended version. We've been on a break, so we've had a lot to catch up with. So yeah, we've got a bunch of things we've been enjoying. Now we can get to our main story discussion. Today, we're going to be talking about Inside Out, the 2024 animation produced by Pixar Animation Studios. It is the sequel to 2015's Inside Out, directed by Kelsey Mann in his featured directorial debut, from a screenplay written by Meg Lefavre and Dave Holstein. Amy Poehler, Phyllis Smith, Lewis Black, Diane Lane reprised their roles from the first film, with Maya Hawke, Kensington Talman, Tony Hill, and more joining the cast. So I will do a recap of this story, as I do, but first let's get everyone's quick takes and general impressions, starting with our guest, Pinali. What did you think about this story?
I think like I was a bit skeptical going in because I feel like I'm a weirdo in the first one, like it was okay, but it's not like up there for me with Pixar.
Mm.
which I feel like is a bit going against what a lot of other people think.
Yeah.
But so I was kind of like, and from the trailers, it felt a bit like it might, be a bit repetitive. But I was actually like pleasantly surprised when I watched it, and I really enjoyed it, and I was able to get into it, and it was a nice. I had a good time with it. So there you go. It was a pleasant surprise for me.
Okay. Pleasantly surprised. Tazzy, were you pleasantly surprised? How did you relate it to the first film as well?
I thought it was a good progression from the first one. The first one was like, I feel like the first one for me was like very much something, not that it wasn't done, but it felt like quite new and fresh. 'Cause it was like tackling some quite serious things. And so this was like just a nice progression from that. It's like then introducing like the new emotions. And I think it was just like really funny as well. And I feel like just a really nice way to explain the brain when going through a very, very complicated time of your life. If anything, the most complicated time your brain, like transition your brain will go through. Like as a collective, we all experience it to some degree. Some people might feel it worse than others. But yeah, I liked how the new emotions were introduced. And then some of the like just very comical things like the wordplay, just they
Yeah.
continued that
Hmm.
wordplay on things and
Yeah.
bringing in, oh my God, the video game crush. I was audibly laughing in the cinema. And
I love that.
I don't think there were any gamers in the audience when I was watching
Oh
because
no.
everyone kind of like didn't quite look around at me. You know, like when people's heads like shift to the side, like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
want to
We just
look
get
at
a look at
you.
who's yeah.
Yeah, like
Where's that coming
side
from?
eye look, like what's so funny. And I'm like, that is hilarious. Like I'm there, like, oh my God, that's so funny. I'm
Mm.
like crying with laughter. And I don't think they were getting the joke.
Yeah, it's definitely a very specific, like, thing from those older games where it's kind of like that
Mm.
sort of
I'm like, that is Cloud.
yes.
So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Long story short.
No, okay, that's I also enjoyed it. I'm one of those people who I feel Inside Out, the first one, is one of my favorite Pixar films just because of how I feel like it's a great example of how Pixar as storytellers have managed to take complex, not always as complex as this, but complex things and distill them into stories that could be understood by young people and adults. And I feel that is it can be easily written off as like it's for kids and blah blah blah. But that's a hard thing to do. Like it's you can do something that's for adults. That's easy to do. You can do something that's for kids. That's a particular approach. But something that can resonate with both audiences, that's a different thing. And I always
Hmm.
appreciate Pixar's ability to do that. And I feel Inside Out is a great example of that. And just the way it tackles emotions and like the important subject. So watching the second one, I was also a bit skeptical because I was kind of like, do you need to do a sequel? Even though the first one they did leave the cliffhanger of like, what's this button
Yeah,
here?
they did point that out at the end of because I rewatched that one preparing for this one, and I was like, oh yeah, they do actually set it up right there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, even still, and then yeah, you're worried about will they make it new enough? And I thought watching the second one, whereas the first was like a good view into like emotions of a young person. So I'm like, this is great for kids to understand like those basic emotions. The second one was for me. That was like
Yeah.
I felt it resonated with me in a similar way that there's two Pixar stories that particularly resonated with me, this one and Soul,
Mm.
where just like what they talk about is like, oh yeah, that that hits.
Hmm.
Actually, that hits for today. Like, damn the kids. This is this is for me.
This
Yeah,
is
okay.
mine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
so I definitely appreciate it. I did feel and I've seen some criticism is quite similar to the first one. We'll get into that. So I had some criticisms and some questions to ask, but overall, I just it had an impact on me, and I
Mm.
like how they have
Mm.
progressed it to the next level with anxiety. Which boy, yeah, um, yeah,
So,
we'll
it's just because I felt the same. Like, yeah.
we'll definitely. I did promise an existential crisis, so we'll get into that. But let me do the recap first, and then we'll dig a bit deeper. So this is a story that takes us to 13-year-old Riley, who has moved to San Francisco and is now entering high school. Joy, sadness, fear, disgust, and anger now oversee Riley's sense of self, which keeps memories and feelings that shape Riley's beliefs. Joy wants to fill the sense of self with only positive memories, creating a mechanism that launches the negative ones into the back of Riley's mind. Riley and her best friends, Bree and Grace, are invited to a hockey camp where Riley hopes to qualify for her school's team, the Firehawks. However, a puberty alarm goes off in the night before camp, and 4 new emotions, anxiety, envy, embarrassment, and ennui, soon arrive and clash with the original emotions. In particular, anxiety wants to focus on winning a spot on a team and make new friends, especially after Riley learns that Bree and Grace will be attending a different high school anyway. So anxiety, deciding that Riley needs to change, launches the sense of self to the back of Riley's mind and has the original emotions captured and thrown into a memory vault. The new emotions then create an anxiety-dominated sense of self and encourage Riley to befriend popular hockey player Val Ortiz over Bree and Grace. So joy, sadness, fear, and anger and disgust escape the vault eventually, and sadness returns to the headquarters while the others go and get Riley's old sense of self. Under anxiety's control, Riley sneaks into the coach's office and learns that she is not considered ready to join the team. The old emotions find a sense of self and cause an avalanche to return them to the headquarters, causing the negative emotions to spill into Riley's current sense of self. Anxiety realizes that Riley's sense of self is one of self-doubt, which causes Riley to perform poorly during her final tryout match and get sent to the penalty box. Horrified, anxiety frantically swarms the console and causes Riley to have a panic attack. The original emotions eventually return to headquarters. Joy finds anxiety still in control but in paralysis. Joy convinces her that Riley does not need to change to have a better future. Anxiety relents and Joy puts Riley's old sense of self back, but the panic attack persists. After anxiety admits that she cannot determine who Riley is, Joy realizes that the same applies to her. So Joy removes the first sense of self and allows a new one to form from Riley's positive and negative memories. This helps calm Riley and leads her to make up with Bree and Grace. So Joy then takes command and helps Riley finish the hockey tryouts happily. Riley befriends Val and the other Firehawks at high school while staying true to herself and maintaining her friendship with Bree and Grace. The original and new emotions now work together to protect Riley, who checks her phone for the Firehawks recruitment results and looks at herself in the mirror with a proud smile. And in the post-credit scene, Joy frees Riley's deep dark secret from the vault, which is revealed to be Riley burning a hole in a rug, though Joy believed it would be Riley urinating in the pool, and Riley's deep dark secret quickly shuts himself back in. The end. So this is kind of a comeback for Pixar, sort of, kind of, according to most people. I feel like it's been acknowledged. I don't know if it's true, but there has been a Pixar slump with films such as Onward and Lightyear and other films like Turning Red, Soul, Luca going straight to Disney Plus around the pandemic. There had been, just discussions that Pixar had lost a step. And then even Elemental, which we talked about when it first came out, it was initially considered disappointing, but it then became a slow burn and then eventually is actually good. And it was a good show. So for both of you, maybe like Tazziii, we could start with you. Do you recognize the Pixar slump? Is that something you recognize? If so, what do you put it down to?
Ooh, do I recognize the Pixar slump? Do you know what? I feel like as someone that doesn't necessarily watch things as they come out, I feel like that's hard for me to gauge. Because a lot of things I only necessarily see close to their releases for the podcast.
Yeah. But you weren't going into this Pixar one more strike and I'm done, because I feel that's the sentiment I got from a lot of people.
No, not at all. I was looking forward to Inside Out too, because Inside Out, the
First one
The
was
first
good.
one was good. So I measured it up against its prequel rather than any other.
Tazzy, you naive soul. You should have gone on social media. You should have seen all the negative
I
responses, and you should have taken that into the cinema with you. What were you thinking?
I did not notice anything. Also, I'm one of these people that tends to just like not really notice other people's opinions on things that I just want to go and see and form my own opinion on.
Yeah, you're doing it
That's
wrong.
healthy.
You're doing
Yeah.
it wrong. I don't know what.
I don't watch trailers. I just like go in like untouched,
A
like
newborn baby.
Untainted.
Yeah.
untainted. Yes, that's the word I was going for. Yeah, like fresh slate. I also tend to not. I have a double standard for movies and video games. I tend to not prejudge movies based on previous things, especially like people are allowed to have a slump, even if it is a big studio that I've just called
Yeah.
people.
Yep.
Even groups, even collectives
Corporations
of
are people.
Yeah,
corporations,
it's true. They are.
corporations, yeah, the people that are making that are people like, and especially in fact even more so with something that comes out of a corporation because there's so many different things going into it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Like slumps happen, and as well, like I feel like if something does really good, then if they do something that's not also really good, it then counts as a disaster. You get like the measurement changes. So I don't acknowledge.
That's a no to the Pixar slump.
Yeah, or like I don't think that is how you judge a studio going forward. Like
Okay. All
slumps
right.
happen. It's fine, even if it is a slump. But
Have you
I don't
got more
recognize a slump.
cynicism, Pinali? Are we giving them grace here?
I think it's a really complicated question, honestly. Like, because yeah, like you mentioned about like it's a corporation, so
Mm.
behind the scenes there's probably a lot going on that we aren't, aware of, with them emphasizing certain things, pulling certain ideas, pushing certain other ones based on what they think will probably make money. And I think that because of that, it's really hard to gauge, like, why certain decisions get made. But I feel like I disagree with a lot of people in that I loved Turning Red, Soul, and Luca. I loved all three of those.
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah.
thought they were all amazing. And I really liked Elemental as well. So I don't feel that those movies count as slump personally, because I really enjoyed them. The only one that really disappointed me a lot was Lightyear, to be honest.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't even watch it. Just there was my spidey sense went off when I saw that. Like
Yeah.
something doesn't feel right about that.
Yeah, no, I watched it and like it was a bizarre movie, and I just have this hunch that like that was one of those corporate things where they're like, this will make a ton of money if you do
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
and then and it
And
just
get
came
Chris
out and it
Evans
was,
on it.
yeah, and you do like, but they didn't really have like a vision, I guess, and they just had to sort of cobble it. I don't know if this is actually true or if this is just me guessing. So maybe someone did have a vision and it just didn't, come together, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's the impression I got from that film. So that was like my big like disappointment with them. But I also just don't, but from there I feel like everything has been, I feel like everything has been going pretty well. I've enjoyed all the films since.
You know what? It's like I kind of feel like this with Marvel, although it's actually probably more justified with Marvel, but I feel like there comes a point, especially with large corporations that have, big commercial interest, where there's a narrative and the narrative is they've gone too far or they've lost what used to be the thing about them, and then it
Yeah.
sticks. And even
Yes.
though the things, because we've done, I think, yeah, Soul, Turning Red, Luca, we've done all of those, and Elemental, and we enjoyed them. So I'm like, kind of like, what slump? It's just, I think the thing that hurt them was putting stuff on Disney Plus, so it doesn't have
Yeah.
the impact, and that can't be helped. I mean, they could have said, "Damn it, we're gonna force it onto cinemas," but then they would have got a different set of criticisms at the
Yeah.
time. But yeah, there's this thing that's like it. Then it becomes almost like fun to be in the camp that's like, oh, Pixar aren't as good as they used to be,
Hmm.
which they're different companies than when it started and all that. But I don't necessarily recognize that, except like which I just that just didn't feel right. But like Tazzy said, you're not gonna hit home runs like like every single time. You're just not
Yeah,
gonna.
exactly.
No one does that. Does anyone do that? No one does that.
I don't think so. Yeah, it reminds me
Yeah,
of how back in, back
Miyazaki, maybe other than that.
yeah, yeah. In the before times, like, they had Brave, which was also, like, I feel a bit of a misfire, but then,
Mm,
like, they came back from that and they did Inside Out after that, so clearly it's not, they only had hits until this point, and it's like, no, they've stumbled before and,
before, yeah.
it's just
So yeah, and I mean, if they were in a slump, well, they're out of it now because this film has just like blown up. So as
mhm.
of July 2024, the film has taken 1.46 billion dollars, so it's 1.13 billion pounds at the box office, and it's definitely more than that because I saw it's now leapfrogged some other films. So it's overtaken last year's most successful film, Barbie, which took $1.4 billion. And overall, it's now the 13th highest grossing film of all time. But I feel it's gone into the top 10 now, certainly will time. So, and it's number
Yeah, I
one.
think it did.
It did, yeah. Okay. And it's number one animation by box office. So Inside Out 2, Frozen 2, this is 1 to 10. Frozen 2, Super Mario Bros., Frozen, Incredibles 2, Minions, Toy Story 4, Toy Story 3, Despicable Me 3, and Finding Dory at number 10. So, yeah. So, whether they're out of slump, if there was a slump. So, it has worked. And what's cool to see is like this being out in cinema, which is great. It's a first time director. So the first one was done by Pete Docter, who's I guess he's moved up into like creative director roles, so more overseeing rather than directing individual ones. And yeah, it seems to be working out. I mean, we'll talk a bit more about in depth about the story, but it seems to have worked. What do you feel, especially since this is a sequel, or maybe because it's a sequel? What do you put the commercial success of this story down to?
I did see it advertised a lot. I am gonna put that one out there.
Yeah, I did see a lot of advertising for it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that works. Disney have the budget. I feel like maybe there's something that resonated with the story itself.
Yeah, I think it's the relatability. I think it has a really high relatability factor to like, really, really high for people, especially, like, in our age group, people on social media kind of thing, like, this
Mm,
whole thing of being a person and having, like, pressures on you and
yeah,
how
boy,
that can like, and I feel like everyone is kind of in this right now where, like, you have pressures at work, you have pressures at school, you have, like I said, online social media, whatever, and I think that's something everyone can relate to, so
mm,
Definitely has a high relatability. And I think because the first one left us at a point of like teasing a sequel enough for that you'd want to watch. If you've watched the first one, you're going to be like, yeah, I can do this. And I think it
mhm.
really well, like it makes a really good continuation. It doesn't feel, it feels like a new fresh look, but it doesn't feel like a completely new thing. It's well sequeled. Not all
yeah.
sequels like feel like a nice, good sequel.
Mhm.
That's true. Yeah. So we'll get into the emotions as well as we talk about like the narrative. And I always like hearing about how things came together and like iterative nature because there was a pass of this film that included 9 new emotions to make Joy feel overwhelmed. But then they felt that the story couldn't keep track of so many emotions without, so many emotions taking the spotlight or not adding to the story. So after the first screening, they simplified the number. So that's
Mm.
interesting to know.
That makes sense to me because there was
Yeah,
already, like,
a lot.
adding
Yeah.
however many new ones, it's like, oh, that's already quite a lot.
Yeah. So this is very much a film about the new emotions and particularly the clash between the new and old emotions. So we do see anxiety, envy, embarrassment, and ennui, with anxiety taking the lead. So of that group and eventually of everything. And then we're exploring more complex emotions and like considerations like the sense of self and everything like that. And yeah, so like I said, this like struck with me. So do you feel that this is an example of Pixar doing that thing they do, that creating stories that resonate across age? Is that, yeah, do we feel that's something that they've done well here? Did you both feel maybe, yeah, did you feel this is something that hits with me and I can relate to it from that sense?
Oh, yes. If anything, I feel like it was way more relatable to me now than me as a
Yeah, that's what.
teenager.
Yes. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
meant to.
I I mean, I'm not a teenager now, so that's really hard to like gauge because obviously I'm watching it from now, not as a
True.
teenager.
True.
But I genuinely feel a lot of those emotions way, way more relatable for me personally now. But also maybe it's like different time. I feel like especially with anxiety, that is something that's way more relatable to a lot more people and a lot
Mm.
more teenagers now.
hmm
Th- I f- I think I mean you have to double check check on this, so don't take my word for it. But I'm pretty sure I've seen some statistics about the rise in like levels of like anxiety and anxiety
Yeah.
attacks amongst teenagers, especially like post COVID.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Especially. Yeah.
And then like with social media and stuff, like a lot of things where they're going to be experiencing way more intensely than I did. Like I
Mm.
feel like for me as a teenager, is it shame? Embarrassment, sorry.
Embarrassment. Yeah.
Embarrassment, and I'm trying to remember them.
The new ones.
Yeah.
So envy, embarrassment, ennui, and anxiety.
Yeah, I feel like I did experience anxiety, but I feel like envy was more of or how they portray envy was made. And my thing was anger. My teenage emotion was anger. And maybe a bit of ennui, but like, yeah, I feel like different time, but I feel like they were way more relatable to me as an adult than what I remember of being a teenager. Like those things, I'm like, oh yeah.
Mm. That's interesting to me because like I feel like this like nails how I felt as a teenager. Like
Mm.
I basically did this exact thing where like my actual self like got boxed away and I like and
Ah,
because I was so worried about what everyone else thought, I like started pretending to be someone else kind of thing. So it was just exactly what happened to me. So it was super relatable.
right.
That's so
Yeah,
fascinating.
that is.
I
And
remember just not caring that much what other people thought.
Yeah, I don't know why I started caring that much. It just like it became like crippling, like really,
Yeah.
really bad.
But I don't think that's uncommon. I feel like, well, obviously it's not uncommon
it's not,
because
yeah,
otherwise,
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like mine is the less usual, like the less common experience of just like not care. Like I definitely felt that later in like the losing yourself later on in life than my teenagers. I was literally the weirdo that walked around by themselves because I just didn't care. Like I just
That's
didn't get
probably
it.
more healthy. You have like that self-respect, I guess, to not, smother yourself in that way.
Yeah, but then I feel like I just experienced it later,
Put it
which
off.
might be less healthy. I don't know. Like you're supposed to experience that as a teenager type thing.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, I've never been a 13-year-old girl before, but I do recognize this. I've felt that idea of like, yeah, different friendship groups and where you fit in. And I kind of like, I was aware of it, but gave up on it or just never made enough of an effort and just accepted I was like in between and that kind of thing. But then the sense of self that really kind of struck me as a younger person, and then like again like now I got this from a website, Desert News, from writer Meg Walter, who kind of summarized what I feel maybe a lot of parents, again Pixar, aiming for that audience, where she said, I assumed the big emotional scene of Inside Out 2, if there was one, would be another moment that would cause me to reflect on the rapidly passing childhoods of my children, but instead the big moment of Inside Out 2 forced me to look inward and reflect on my own mental health. And that's like me watching this film, because I just found myself reflecting. Even the very day I saw it, I remember I got an email related to like workshops that day. The email was someone saying like, call me, basically, like, can you call me about something? And that never sounds good. Like, can you, because I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm like, oh,
I
is that
have anxiety. You telling me
that's
that someone
yeah.
emailed you to say,
Yes.
"Can I call you?" Because they're like the two two things, like emails overwhelming, so then make me anxious, and then phone calls, boy,
Yeah.
that makes me anxious. And people, especially so then that you email it, because emails to me are like serious. If it was like a
But the
text
fact that you
message,
didn't means like it must be it must be something. So I don't even necessarily have a problem with the phone call, but it's just when they said call me, I'm like, this must be bad. I felt my mind and me immediately go there. When I called them and talked to them, it was nothing. It was just some like paperwork,
Hmm.
paperwork stuff. So I did, and
Yeah.
now it's coming back to me now. And I did that on the way to the film. So the irony of like being in that situation, and then as I'm watching the film, I'm like, damn, this is me, but then also this is literally me on the way to the film. I let anxiety take over for something
It's
that
like a
just
call out.
yeah, it was so yeah, very much resonated with me. So I feel Pixar has done this, and I'd like the new emotions. Obviously, anxiety gets the lead role in this, but yeah, embarrassment is just I feel we've had young people in our workshops, and there's one in particular in our work experience who is that character is literally that
Yeah.
character.
That's very relatable, I think that one as well. Like when you do something and it's like, "Oh, no."
I actually laughed every time he was on screen because I could see the young person who I was thinking of.
oh my
Yeah,
god.
and I feel like you know who I'm talking about.
As soon as you said it, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
I can.
yeah, it is him. So yeah, just very accurate reflections and being able to cross that age barrier. But coming back to the slump thing and wondering if Pixar was playing it safe with this, because I did see a lot of commentary on this, like, Pixar, this is the there's one story that was like, this is there you go. Inside Out 2 is the product of of the Pixar slump. And I was like, whoa, that is a take I
Mm.
don't agree with. But then there's this concept of like sequelitis. So it's the tendency of a well-received work to spawn many inferior sequels. So we've seen this in like The Matrix, Pirates of the Caribbean, Terminator, which had like arguably the best sequel ever, and then just downhill
Downhill from there,
from
yeah.
from there. So this is from Vulture, Alison Wilmore, who says the new emotions and the whole structure of the film don't feel sophisticated enough for someone suddenly experiencing the agonizing pressure of wanting to fit in and tearing herself to bits in a self-loathing effort to do so. By the end of Inside Out 2, it's the inner world that feels forced into the outer story, turning Riley into someone who has to lurch according to its whims rather than lead the way in her own struggle through the tortures of being a new teenager. She's more puppet than full character, though the forces pulling her strings aren't a rainbow of talking emotions so much as they are a studio that has lost its touch.
Ooh, I have
Oh,
things to
brutal.
say about that.
Yeah, same.
Because as much as I didn't necessarily relate to the specific emotions that were in Riley's head at this point, I do remember being a teenager and feeling so out of control and like I wasn't necessarily in control all the time. And that it
Mhm.
was a whim of my emotions, which actually you kind of are as a teenager. It's kind of
Yeah.
the definition of being a teenager is
Mm.
that your emotions and your hormones are in control. That is being a teenager.
Yeah. I remember lots
So
of, like, bursting into tears at random things and
yeah.
getting angry over stupid things that happen.
The logical part of your brain is just forming. You are literally controlled by emotions. So maybe their critique of it is kind of just telling me that it was a really good movie because it
Mm.
Because
if
it
it that
depicted
because yeah it done the thing. I do agree with it. It doesn't no, it doesn't perfectly explain the complex emotions of what's going on in a teenager's head. It's a how many minutes long movie.
Yeah.
yeah.
There is science that still hasn't completely explained
Yeah.
the teenage experience. Like, of course, it's not going to summarize it in a movie. It is a movie, not a science lesson.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
feel the
It's
first one got knocked for this as well.
yeah, it's supposed to be a something that helps you to tap in to what's going on,
Mm.
helps you to have some understanding. It has to be able to be comprehended by a younger audience, and not even just a younger audience, just people that might not be as well versed in their emotions and what's going on inside their head, because
Yeah.
emotions are hard and complicated, and a lot of people haven't actually learned how to like explore some of the harder and more complicated ones,
Mhm.
like
Yeah, yeah.
anxiety.
Yeah, even in the 30s.
Yeah, like that's a real thing. Having an anxiety attack is hard, and I feel like it was perfectly depicted on how it feels to be going through an anxiety attack.
Mhm. I also, like, disagree with the whole, like, her feeling like a puppet thing. I feel like if anything in the sequel, she feels like less of a puppet than the first one, right? Like,
Mm.
in the first one, there was a lot more of the emotions taking control of the console, whereas in this, like, at the beginning, something I noticed is that, they will, like, step back and they'll say, "Let's let Riley handle this." Like, she's her actual
Yeah.
Oh,
person
yeah, yeah,
apart
yeah.
from them. And at the end, when Joy, like, Riley wants you, Joy.
Mm.
Like Riley's a separate entity who is asking for these emotions.
Was
So
yeah.
so
Yeah.
that makes her feel less puppety to me.
Yeah, that's a
That's
good
so
point. Yeah,
true.
because I did feel Riley gets more. We just see
We
more
get more
her do
Riley
more things.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we get more of her as a person.
Person, yeah. So and again,
Yeah.
her
And
experience was like relatable as well as the
yeah.
emotions driving them.
And a lot of there was a lot of times where she was actually fighting against the emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah, like one of them would try to make her do something. It's like, oh, she doesn't want to. Like,
Mm,
Yeah.
which like, yeah, it makes you feel like so she's not just a puppet because she's clearly having her own input, which I think is the sense of self had something to do with that. Like that's
right.
this thing separate from the emotions, which represents who she is. And if the emotions try to do something against that, then that will like kick in.
Right. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, that's a good point. That was a cool, interesting mechanic. Again, very sort of relatable. Got something for that somewhere.
Yeah. Oh God, I need to watch it again.
Yeah, I feel that the two films should be just like required watching for as you grow up, just serve as a conversation for those, and this podcast as well. Those the two films, and then listen to this podcast again. So the things I will knock it for, as I was thinking, is the journey, because in the first film you had joy and sadness go on this journey. They get knocked out of the headquarters and they have to go on this journey to
Hmm.
find their way back. And there is a similar thing. So if you're gonna sort of knock it, I can see like it's a similar structure. I mean, it works, but then you could say, is there something else they could have done? I mean, this time you see all the emotions get taken out into the vault, and then they've got to find their way back. So in a sense, it's like you are seeing more of the other emotions, because in the first film it's basically joy and sadness, and then the others are kind of doing their thing in headquarters. But this, you get to see all of them. But it was very similar, so I could see that argument. And then the
Yeah.
one that made me question as I was watching is Joy, actually, because when the film starts, so we see Joy taking the bad experiences and sending them to the back of the brain, and I felt that that was very similar to the Joy that we saw at the beginning of the first film, who had learned the value of the other emotions. So it's kind of like a bit of a regression for Joy. I
Yeah.
don't know if you felt that.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I was like that's why I was like skeptical going in, and especially like as the movie was starting and she was like jettisoning those emotions, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, she's doing it again.
Yeah. So that was, I mean, it's slightly different because it was, yeah, the sense
Mm.
of self and all that, but it felt kind of a bit too similar if I was going to be
Yeah.
ultra critical.
I agree. That bit did. I remember thinking like that, like it just niggled at my brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like, because I get why Joy would be like that a little bit, because it is like, I mean, it's quite overwhelming having four more emotions.
Yeah. But she's still Joy. So
Still Joy, yeah.
yeah.
Still like Joy's still thing is like, I want Riley to be happy all the time,
Yeah.
and has like figured out how to work with sadness
Mm.
and the others well to make that happen. But I feel like what they tried to do, and they slightly missed, that made that annoying, was they tried to make, because it would have made more sense if Riley was less annoyed at a new emotion and more annoyed at the fact that another emotion was taking control. I feel like that's
Riley or
what was,
Joy?
sorry, Joy.
Joy. Right.
Joy. But it
Yeah. I
felt
see what you
more
mean.
like Joy was just annoyed at another emotion for existing, right? Where it felt like it was supposed to be about another emotion like taking the lead, but they like missed. They swung and they missed.
Misty. Yeah, that's a good point. So I think that's what I was thinking is like that. They miss where the focus could have gone in terms of like
Yeah.
Joy's reaction.
Yeah. Probably just needed like a little fine tuning on Joy's like whole
Mm.
thing.
All right, we'll send this podcast to Pixar
Yeah.
afterwards after I edit.
More of an emphasis on the others, like how, because the others see Joy as a leader.
The
So I
the
feel like
other old emotions.
the old emotions, yeah. Like I feel like it would have made more sense if they were a bit like, wait, isn't Joy in charge here? Because I think it comes up a little bit, but I feel like it would have made more sense for them to lean into that rather
Focus,
than
yeah.
Joy's reaction to it.
Yeah, and it was immediately pitched as the Joy versus anxiety, which I guess is the point, at least the point they were trying to get across. And then because we see, it's funny, we see them, they're all asleep, and then the changes just happen, and they're just like, what is going on here? I feel that's just a great representation for puberty. It's just like, what's going on? No one was ready for it. And then anxiety shows up. So in the first film, we had Joy playing kind of dual roles, so protagonist and antagonist, in that she was the problem. Basically, her not learning the lesson was the problem that was stopping them from getting to the goal. Here you've got separate, so but the enemy is still inside, so it's still anxiety is still like inside Riley's brain, but separate character. So they quickly take over. So after they're what are the things that build the new console? Are they? I don't know the name for them.
Like
I can't remember.
builder guys, they're like little
Yeah,
like brain builders or something.
okay, let's call them
I
brain
remember
builders. So
brain builders.
the brain builders come in just before Riley's going off to hockey camp, install the new console, and then the new emotions start showing up, and then anxiety quickly takes over. And this is where, boy, this is where I just started, like, the film was talking to me, and like, so this idea that Riley needs to be this person to succeed in this thing, and then just the ideas of like having to super prepare for everything to the point where the other emotions are diminished, and that's such an interesting premise at any age, like we're saying, but like when you're like at that age in high school. And I feel like a great thing that they did is they had the conversation in the car between Riley and her friends. And when they were talking about, yeah, we're all going to the same school, and then there's a hesitation. Like, it's funny because I saw that as it's happening, and then the emotions were like, whoa, something's wrong. No, the emotions in like whose head was it?
It showed all three like
Yeah, it
in
showed
a
us.
row.
That's it. Yeah, the different reactions. I was like, oh, there's something here. Nope,
Yeah.
zoom in there. That was hilarious. I really
It
enjoyed
was
that.
great. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was funny.
but then the underlying thing of like, oh, we're all in this together. Oh wait, you're abandoning me, and I can sort of resonate with that concept of like, wait, we're not all doing this thing, and at that age, feeling like I'm being abandoned, and
Yeah.
so what if I leave you guys to make new friends because you're leaving me anyway?
hmm
I thought that was a great like premise for what happens later. So then we get anxiety taking over and just messing with Riley's sense of self. So like, I always feel like good antagonists are relatable in some way. So how did we feel about anxiety as an antagonist and what they wanted, and how that stopped what everyone, or Joy specifically, but everyone else kind of wanted? How did you feel like anxiety as a antagonist?
I honestly liked it personally. I liked how I mean like to me the most relatable villains are always the ones that they're trying to help, they're trying to do something good, but
Mm.
they're just their way of going about it is just not quite right. And they end up messing stuff up that way, which is exactly what happens here. So I find it quite relatable that anxiety is just this is what Riley needs right now. And we see when anxiety first appears and takes control of the console to talk to I forgot her name, the Firehawk girl that she wanted to
Or
be
Val.
like. Yeah, Val. Then like everyone is like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And then actually she nails it. and it goes well, and everyone was like, wow, that was great anxiety. So it shows how anxiety can be useful in certain
Mm.
situations, but it's just when it goes out of control that it's a problem. So I really liked that, and I liked how, yeah, anxiety does genuinely want to help.
That's the thing. It comes from a good place, but if
Yeah.
you just let that take control, it goes to bad places. Like that scene where she was making them come up with scenarios. We have to plan for every scenario, like the
Oh,
worst
and they're in the
scenarios.
imagination
The
thing.
imagination thing,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was my drive to the
Thinking of
cinema.
all these, like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yes,
all these scenarios in your head, and it's like, yeah,
I
that is so.
loved that scene. I loved how it depicted it, and then I love how Joy and crew were just like started then drawing them and trying to inspire the good stuff. It's
Putting,
like,
like, nice
yeah,
imagination, yeah.
yeah, like what if? And because as well, it was like the extreme disastrous stuff, and then the
yeah,
extreme happy to balance it out. And it was like, because that's an actual technique.
right.
Like that, I've sat and spoke to a therapist about that. Is like the what ifs whenever you've got those
Mm,
like disasters, just sit down and like write down the like what if it works out? Like what could go right?
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, I need to do that. That scene was my drive to the cinema, let alone
Yeah.
Aw.
outside of that, because that was when the film, like, I was like, oh, this is about me, because I on the way I was like, what is that call about? Could it be this? Could it be that? Could it be that? And then it was
Oh, no.
nothing.
Just put your anxiety in the chair and have
Yeah,
it take a time out.
yeah, some tea.
Yeah.
Exactly. Honestly, like,
Oh, the
yeah.
imagery in this film is so good.
Oh, yeah, that was just like just a relatable thing. I was gonna because I actually messaged a friend who's got kids, and I'll just introduce his. Yeah, I was going to mention it earlier actually, but so he's got kids, and he mentioned, because we're on a group chat, that he was gonna go see it with his kids. So I was like, let me know what you think when you see it. So he said, like, as a dad, it opened his eyes to a lot of what his daughter may be going through in a few years, because his daughter, I should know how old his daughter is. I actually don't. That's bad on me. She's young. She's under 10. She's somewhere around there. But he said what was more deep is how I realized I had learned to let anxiety control me in order to be effective at my job. He does sales,
Mm,
but the long-term impact isn't great. And that's it, right? Is
yep.
that is like one of the lessons, like that this, if you let that take control for long, it's just not healthy at all. And I say that as a hypocrite, but yeah. So I just thought it was a great antagonist. And then the scenarios that they get involved with because of what anxiety is doing, like as they're on this journey, it then has that great balance of like genuine fear and concern, and relatability, but then also fun or funny and the journey. So we see in terms of like the world building how they use humor to get across like the world of Riley's mind, and also some of the concepts. Like one of the other funny things was the sarcasm.
Oh,
uh,
yeah, that was good, yeah.
that was one of
So
those kind of
good.
like cliche, but it worked, and the way they did it worked. And that would felt like me as a kid, because I would say things, and it would it would come across as sarcasm even when I didn't mean it necessarily to, so people might take things the wrong way. Yeah, that was hilarious. So they're like shouting across the chasm, and it's like they're saying like innocent things, but it's just coming across in the worst way.
That bit made me laugh so much. And when it first happens and they're like, that's a
It's
sarcasm.
like,
And I was like, a what? And I'm like, and
It's
I
like,
literally,
oh.
I'm laughing out loud in the cinema because I'm like, that's funny. And then it just built on that humor. And it actually reminded me of a situation recently where I couldn't tell if someone was being sarcastic or serious.
Oh,
And I'm
no, the
there, and
worst.
I'm like, no, but I can't tell if you're joking. Can you just let me know
yo.
if you're being serious or you're joking? And I just couldn't get from their tone like the sarcasm or the seriousness. And because we'd only like met quite recently, it was like I hadn't sort of got to know how they speak.
Right.
Oh, and like just hilarious. Or like when you're over the internet, right?
Oh yeah, just any
And
like
Yeah.
text.
You gotta put the slash S in there, you know?
like anything can be read sarcastically if you don't.
Yeah, that's true. I suffer from that. But yeah, so just like seeing like visually how they built this world, even with like the character design, like anxiety looks anxious.
Yes. They did a great job.
Ennui,
Yeah, and Ennui is Ennui is there. It's like what's funny
like slumped
because
over the
Pixar
couch.
and yeah, Pixar and Disney have this. I think there was a phrase for it I saw like I think it was like the Disney princess effect or something with their female characters like looking like Joy basically a lot
Mhm.
of the times, and this was an example of them maybe being a bit more creative with some of their female characters. So yeah, anxiety, but yeah, Ennui was just that perfectly captured like I don't know, just that teenage spirit.
It was like with the couch to go with it, and the way Ennui like moved,
I love that
like
she would like fall over and stuff and like
Yeah.
yeah,
just
she's
I
like
can't be bothered. I can't be bothered.
she's kind of like slip down the chair and kind of just
Yeah.
like slump over and just like phone in hand. Oh my god, the phone in
God in
hand.
hand.
Like talk about teenage ennui.
Like absolutely. And also like
Like
with the development of the film, like Pixar actually brought in a group of 9 teenagers who were dubbed Riley's crew, who provided feedback on the film to make sure it accurately portrayed modern teenage life. So if that wasn't already in there, it was going
love
in there.
That's
yeah.
great. I love that. I love how I feel like that's very common with like Pixar. Like they do a lot of research into like how
Mm,
things are in the real world. Like I
yeah.
got that from the like the hockey scenes as well, where like the way that they portrayed like how the feet were moving, how the skates were sounding and stuff
Okay.
like that. I feel like they must have like had so many reference things on hand for
Mm,
that. And I always appreciate the detail.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, just on the detail, the character designs and even the again like the wider visual. So the color palette of the film reflects Riley's state of mind. And I didn't even realize this. I don't know if either of you spotted this, but
I did notice it. I did notice that, like, you know, like the shades in the background would change depending on what
on the
was.
right, yeah,
Yeah, it was really
and
cool actually.
there was zero orange in the film until the first shot of Anxiety, and that's like a level of detail that is
Yeah,
just
wow.
I didn't
crazy.
even
But
notice that. Wow.
yeah, and then yeah, just speaking of the characters, just how they move. We talked about ennui and see like we know sadness, joy. What did you think, like Pinali, as an artist and illustrator of the character designs and yeah, just how they reflected the characters?
I honestly really like them. I feel like, you know, they're going to be pretty simple because they are just like base emotions. So they
Mm,
need to go with very simple like shapes and like silhouettes for them. And I feel like they accomplished that really well. Like if you had like just the silhouette of any of those characters in front of you, you'd be able to tell which one it was, no problem.
yeah,
Which is, you know, a general character design. This is what you want to get. And then yeah, they all just like embody their emotions pretty well. I especially love like embarrassment with the big hoodie.
but
Like
yeah.
it's yeah, it's so cute when he like puts it around his face and stuff. I
Honestly,
don't
Pinali,
know,
if you
that's
could
just
see this kid that I'm thinking of, it just you is like is one for one when he at least when he first did work experience with us and
that's
one for
amazing.
one,
I love
yeah.
that.
Sweet.
uh,
Just
but
always felt for embarrassment. And then, because it really made me think about how embarrassment relates to my own other emotions, especially anxiety and envy. Because,
in what way?
well, because embarrassment was kind of team anxiety at first.
Yeah, he came in on the bus. Yeah.
He connected with sadness at one point though, like
Yeah,
the two of them did a thing together.
but they all kind of connect, apart from joy, they all kind of connected to another emotion. But embarrassment in particular, because it's obvious how envy and anxiety get along. But it was like interesting just to see how embarrassment reacts to anxiety and envy and how they can almost make because it wasn't clear like what's embarrassment's role, like how does embarrassment help until embarrassment starts working with like sadness and some of the other
Mm.
emotions. And so yeah, it just made me think a bit about that for me.
How the emotions relate. Embarrassment and sadness. I don't know, that felt like a good pairing.
So cute. Let me get that for you.
Yeah. And and then from like a world building perspective as well, the belief system and the sense of self as well. That was another thing that really hit me. Like, yeah, who are you, or who do you think you should be almost?
Hmm.
And just
Mm.
seeing, I like the mechanism of it, and in terms of like the memories and the strings. So you'd put them down into the river thing, and then it would form the new stringy type things that would go up and help form the sense of self, and the different memories and feelings that would feed into that and form the sense of self. And what Joy was trying to do is make it all positive. So you had Riley with this "I'm a good person" conversation, and then, I mean, there's so many points that hit me. But then when anxiety took over and then changed it, and then you get to a point where it's like, I'm not good enough, and that is, boy, yeah, that is a thing to wrestle with. If, like, I feel in creative, when in any endeavor, but I feel
Hmm.
particularly with
Mm.
creative endeavors, and particularly when you're making your own thing, because it's not. And I say this in talks when I go to colleges and schools and speak to young people. Is like, when you're on that path, you're not necessarily affirmed, and in fact, sometimes, a lot of times, it's the opposite. You're actually told. I mean, that's why we're doing a whole story, right? But you're told no in some form, like your what you're doing isn't going to work. You can't do it, whatever it might be, and that feeds into, you go, oh, maybe I'm not good enough. And it made me
Yeah.
think about. I said this on a podcast before, but I had an event. I spoke at an event recently, early in the year, and sometimes I'll say things and people will come up to me later and say, "Oh, that thing you said," and I've like forgotten. Just things just flies out. But there's one thing I said that actually it stuck with me. It was weird, and I don't mean this in an egotistical way. I don't want this to come across like that, but something something I said really stuck with me. But I was talking about sort of like identity, and saying that for a while I didn't consider myself like as an author or a writer for whatever weird reason, even though I've literally written comics. And I was saying that when you don't think you're a thing, you then don't always act as the thing. So in my case, I look back and I feel like I could have done more writing, or I could have learned more, or I would have done things differently if I believed I was a writer, like from
Mm.
early. Because you would have, I don't know, taken courses, or at least watch more YouTube videos or whatever. But then written like smaller stuff, because I've always been focused on like the big volumes. I would have written more sort of smaller stuff without the pressure of this has to then be a comic that we're going to then sell in a commercial sense. I would have done more of that. But because I didn't think of myself in that way, I look back
Yeah.
and there's times where I actively avoided doing it. So that whole like concept stuck with me, especially when Riley came to the point of like, I'm not good enough, because then you start acting in that way. And it just made me think about, yeah, like self-belief and all that. Again, yeah, just another point that stuck with me. So that kind of hurt, like seeing her in that position, and just her
Hmm.
going, I'm not good enough. And then like, oh man, because if you think you're not good enough, then obviously you're not good enough,
Yeah,
because
you're gonna
that's what you
act
think.
differently.
Yeah. And like that pressure of because her sense of self was like, I am a good person.
Even that,
Like it's
yeah,
so that's such a high bar to give yourself.
yeah, because no one's good all the
Hmm.
time.
Yeah, it's like I'm a good person. I'm a good friend. That's kind
Mm.
of subjective as well, depending on the friend. Like everyone rates what a good friend is differently. Like,
Yeah.
and that I really related to that bit of like putting these pressures on yourself. This is before you even like have an external pressure of like these heights that you've got to achieve,
Mm.
and like learning to give yourself grace.
Hmm.
Um, as a kid, I was like the well-behaved kid, like the didn't get in trouble kid, to the point of like getting put on my first report, even though like I wasn't really a troublemaker in this situation. That's a whole different thing. But
I had one of those too. It wasn't me. I was just here. I was just quite.
mine really wasn't me. Every teacher was like, "Why are you even on report? This makes zero sense." It was just a specific teacher was attacking me, but
uh,
but even so, but then it was like this like thing of like, but I'm the good kid,
mm,
like
Hmm.
mm,
that's such a high bar to achieve, which means you don't get
Yeah.
grace, which means like when I got like, I think it was a G for just good, and then there was like one above that. So whenever I got like the G, which wasn't bad, it didn't affect me in any way.
Right.
Like it didn't make me have to go see, like it didn't change my report. Like you wanted a G or the one above a G. I can't remember what it was.
Hmm.
But I'd be like, but it's not the best one I can get. Because
Yeah, I guess this
I'm
like
the
connects
good
to.
kid.
Sorry. Yeah,
Sorry, yeah.
no, I was just gonna say that I guess this connects to like what they were saying at the end, where like but at the end of the movie, it's like, oh, anxiety is putting too much pressure on her, but then technically Joy was also putting too much pressure on her with these at the beginning by
Mm,
jettisoning those bad memories or
Yeah.
whatever, so that they would form part of her core beliefs. But then that resulted in her core beliefs being these high bar things like I'm a good person, I'm a good friend, I'm a winner, whatever. Like, and those are
Yeah.
like really, yeah. So they were both actually putting pressure on her, and at the end, obviously, the solution is to let things combine, let her be imperfect.
Yeah. And no, it's like the how you got that good is like by
mm.
not being so good in the first place and
Yeah.
learning.
No, and yeah, just that thought for yeah, for a young audience. Because even so, my friend also said when I asked my daughter what she thought of the film, what she thought the film was about, she said that you shouldn't leave your old friends behind when you make new ones, which is a good message. But he was saying like
Mhm.
some of the more complex ones might have went over her head, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things that she can then rewatch and then she'll
Mm.
pick up like different things as
I'm
well. So
so curious for like in a few years' time, like what her take on it will be.
yeah, I might have to
Keep
like
me updated.
study group. Yeah, a study group of my friends' kids and see what they think. So, but yeah, again, that was another moment just thinking about that, just for my own life as well. So we've spoken a lot about like the different characters. I feel like we've gone through most of them. I don't know if there was a. I feel it's anxiety, but if there was a character that resonated in particular, maybe it was that one. But other than maybe joy and anxiety, if there was one that you feel stood out and or shone in this role, I always like anger. I just anger just
Mhm.
makes me laugh. And Lewis Black, because he's just perfect for that. He does a segment on the Daily Show which is just him, that it's old man complaining, but it's basically that, it's copy and paste that. So I just love seeing him in that role.
Mm.
But then he has a moment where later on, just helping Joy when, because there's that moment where Joy is like, I don't know, like I don't know what
Yeah.
the answer is,
And
and
he's
he
like,
helps.
I got this.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I like that.
I like that. Yeah, Anger getting
Yeah,
his little moment.
yeah,
Yeah.
and getting him back on track.
One one emotion that we kind of haven't spoke about because they're not really in it is nostalgia.
Oh,
Mm,
I
yeah.
I really appreciated like nostalgia's cameo, and it like being like it's not your
your
time yet,
time, yeah,
but then
Yeah, no, not yet.
that idea that you do actually experience nostalgia young,
yeah.
even though the nostalgia's not that far
No,
away,
it's not that deep.
like.
It's,
Yeah. And then, like, because you kind of like understand nostalgia better the older you get because it affects you more
yeah,
the
yeah,
older you get.
no, for sure.
But I really appreciated that. Just like,
Is it my time?
remember, and especially with like kids nowadays, because I feel like nostalgia hits earlier because
Yeah.
things fly by so quickly.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Just because it just reminded me, like the amount of times I've been in workshops, multiple times I've been in workshop, and a kid like 10 or so will s- will say something like, "Oh, like when I was younger, I used to like this
Yeah.
thing," and in my mind, I'm like, "You're 10.
You
What
are younger.
you mean yesterday? Like what are you what are you talking about? How can
When
how can
I
you have
was a
no?"
kid.
Yes, like
Yeah.
genuinely, like when I was like, they've said like when I was a kid, I'm like, you can't have nostalgia. That's how is that possible?
When I was just a wee boy.
Like honestly,
You're
some
like,
some of these kids,
you were still a wee boy.
you you barely got past my knee. Like what are you talking about?
Yeah. I really enjoyed like I just enjoyed going back to some of like the older emotions,
Mm,
like disgust as well. Just like And I think it is that bit in the car where the face, the expression and disgust is just like,
Oh, I've got this.
Yeah.
yeah, it's like
Yeah.
get the projector up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That was great.
The sassy disgust, and then how like the sort of like emotions are paired up with each other. But it also makes me like kind of like I really hope that there's a third one, even though I feel like
Okay.
it'll probably start falling off then.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Sequelitis.
I want to see like new emotions. I want to see passion and anger. Like,
Oh yeah. Oh, that
just
was funny.
and just like yeah, see nostalgia, see Riley as like I want to see like the 25, the
I was
prefrontal
thinking that.
lobe
Yeah.
formation.
I guess my concern at that point would be like, would this be like, all ages at that point? You know,
Good
I
like
point.
think
It's good.
Pixar can make it
Yeah, yeah.
happen.
If we're gonna get into
yeah,
your
I think they could
emotions at 20s,
probably
yeah.
yeah.
Like, I feel that was so funny. Just like passion, like making this amazing piece of art. I don't know why Riley's doing art, but
Because
Anger's
it's
just
fun.
there, like, make it more angry. And Joy's like, no, it needs more light. Oh, I'm
There was one thing
sorry.
I was gonna. So before we go into the themes and final thoughts, I was gonna just mention about joy. Because like I said, there's many things that just hit me. But at the end, I think Penali, you've raised this scene already. But when the console was calling for her, so the when anxiety just the panic attack and that kind of I don't even know what you call it the storm just swirling so fast like all you could see is like the barrier that just like just such a heavy moment. And what I love about Pixar stories, and I feel they've like because I think the team or Pete Docter is very much a fan of Studio Ghibli, and where they don't have I mean, they had a separate antagonist character here, but it's not like a fight of protagonist and antagonist, which often happens in like Western films. It's very much internal. I mean, I know this is literally internal, but it's not that kind of conflict ending. So here you had anxiety get in such a state that Riley's having a panic attack, anxiety's having a panic attack and doesn't know what to do. She's taking it too far. And then when Joy like talks her down and she says, you can let go, something like that. You can let go, and it's just like
Yeah, something like that.
and I was like, again, this should just be required watching for that. Just that thing, so you can let go, and it will be okay. Such a powerful message. And then after that, when the console like called out for Joy, and it's like Riley wants you. So at that stage, you've got Riley wanting to doing this tryouts, but she's so anxious. She's like, I have to score the goals. Val scored
Mhm.
2, no one scored more. I'm going to score more. I'm going to take over, score these goals. She body checks her friend, and that's what puts her in a penalty box. And then after the panic attack and she gets back on, she starts enjoying it. And that's when the console calls for her. And it just hit me. And it's obvious because Joy is the main character, but for some reason in that moment, it just hit me. Like, Joy has to be the leader. She has to be the leader because you have to lead with joy. Like, that is just how,
Mhm.
because you see when Riley's enjoying it, and then it comes. It's that whole idea of like detachment. And I know like that Tazziii spoke about. I've got a friend who's very much into just spirituality and that whole concept, which is funny seeing the reaction from other friends to sometimes you see like just detach and everyone's like what. But that's it. It's like you enjoy it and then it just changes. It's that idea of like if you hold on to it, you can't, like there's this concept of like if you hold on too tightly, you like your hand, nothing can be put in. But if you open up, now stuff can get put in, and that's what happens in that
Mm.
scene. And it just hit me that joy has to be the leader, and that's the underlying message is you have to lead with joy. You have to find a way to lead with joy. As it's easier said than done sometimes, but yeah, that was just a big penny drop moment for me.
That's a really
Yeah.
good point. Good observation.
That anxiety scene, like, I have never related so hard to anything in my entire life. Like, I felt that.
Mm.
Like, I felt it in my body. My body almost started to have an anxiety attack because it was such a, it's like, it felt so real. It was like, how how do you visually display anxiety? Like what's going on inside your head when you're having a full-blown anxiety attack?
That is
And
it.
that was it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, like the spinning and like being frozen because there's so much spinning going on and it's
Mm.
just,
yeah, like
like
There's
it's
so
a
much
great
everything
way
is
to
movement, you're
show it.
stuck in place.
yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
everything is happening all at once, but not all at the same time. Like yeah, and the like the voices, the like repetitive,
Mhm.
echoing voices of like there's so many of them that you can't even really like pick out that there's other things going on. They're just echoing in your head, this
mm.
horrible feeling. Ah.
Yeah, yeah, it's touched it's touched us. So,
And it's yeah.
but yeah, that was one of the many sort of touching moments in this. So I'll round up with the themes and we can do final thoughts. But I mean, we talked about the themes because it's a very theme heavy story. So we talked about anxiety, both anxiety and joy, realizing that it's important to make Riley a complex person. So not super anxious, but also not that self-satisfied, I'm a good person kind of thing. And then building your identity. So like just seeing how much of our identity is formed and at any age, but by what we think other people want us to be. And that's really important as well. We see, so I mean, in the film, we see a teenager solidifying her sense of self and eventually accepting that she isn't going to be totally a good person all of the time. I think that's important. The idea of like that complexity in who you see yourself as. I do feel they could have, if I'm going to knock them for something else, they could have spent more time on that in the outer world and how that looks. But
Mm.
that would have been interesting to explore a bit more. But yeah, I guess time and how long it was and what you fit in. But that was good. And then another one that kind of struck me. I don't think this was the point, but I saw this as someone who has a company and this idea of leadership. Because what I saw was Joy, the leader, having to deal with another person who essentially is challenging the assumed leader of
Yeah.
the group. And what do you do when someone comes in with like other ideas? And it's like Joy having to learn that as well. Now, the person that came in with ideas was crazy or went in some crazy direction. But yeah, that was just an interesting one. When you're a leader, you've got your team, and then someone else comes in and says, we don't need you anymore. It's like, well, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that
Mm.
challenge? So that was an interesting one for me.
Definitely.
So yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel we've had a moment. Any final thoughts? I know there's definitely scenes that haven't mentioned, but is there any like scene or moment that we haven't mentioned that has left an impression?
It's so hard because there's so many. But
I actually came in with one thought that I don't think has been brought up yet, and it's this idea of how if you let yourself be controlled by anxiety, it doesn't only harm you; it makes you kind of be a to the people around you. Sorry, a jerk.
Yeah.
um, but
Yeah.
like it's that thing where like and you don't even realize you're doing it because you're so focused on yourself and like how you look and how to do the right thing that you don't realize that you are coming across as a jerk to the people around you. And like that is
mm,
something that I've definitely like it makes me think of so in the cartoon Steven Universe, there's a character called Lars, and he has this same thing where he's really like concerned about being cool. You know what I mean? Like he wants to be
Mm,
one of the cool kids to the point that like he will act like I guess like a bit of ennui kind of stuff where like he acts like he doesn't care and whatever, but deep down he really cares a lot, and that's why he acts
mm,
like that. And yeah, he ends up like getting invited to this party by the cool kids and he can't get himself to go through the door because like he's so afraid. And like to
ooh.
them it looks like he ditched them, right? Like they're like,
mm,
hey, what the heck, we invited
Oh,
you.
okay.
But I feel like Riley is doing kind of the same stuff here, and
Yeah.
like
No.
that connects with me. How like it makes me think of how in the past I probably came across as like why are you acting like you're acting like you don't care or whatever. But it was actually just the anxiety was making me feel like that was the correct thing to do, which is like
Right.
it's such like a yeah. But that really connected with me.
I was just gonna say, even this conversation is like making me reflect on like real life that I'm like, oh, I need to work on that.
Is like because I'm thinking about the scene when Riley was in with the new team and they were talking about music
Oh, the band,
Yeah, the boy
and they were like,
band,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I was like, oh, you don't, you like, I was like, I used to like them. And then her friends came in. It's like, no, we just saw them last week. You loved it. It's like, and then she switched on the sarcasm, and just like completely turned into a jerk to them
Yes.
because she thought
Yeah.
that's what she needed to be in that moment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in doing so, she, like, throws her friends under the bus and makes
Well,
them,
exactly.
yeah, which is like, that's awful, of course, but she doesn't realize she's doing that in the moment. She doesn't she can't see how much her actions are hurting these people she cares about because the anxiety has got its claws in. And that's,
Mhm.
yeah, it's definitely something that I feel like people don't really talk about that a lot. Like it's people focus a lot about the internal thing with anxiety, but you
Right.
also have to consider how it
The
affects people
impact.
around you.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah.
There's a lot of learning in this. In this, I don't know if you thought of something, Tazzy, or
I did, but that just completely, whatever it
yeah,
was,
that's good.
is gone because I'm like, I'm gonna have to go do some journaling.
Yeah,
Brain explosions
explosion.
happening. Like,
Seriously,
Like, genuinely, that's something I've been working through, and anxiety definitely has been like leading the charge in this one situation, and I don't know how
mm.
to like stop it from getting that. Oh my god. Anyway, let me not turn this into a
Yeah, the
therapy
therapy
session.
sessions.
But leading with joy, leading with joy.
Yeah.
lead with joy. There
Yeah,
you
lead with
go.
joy. I not to dismiss all your other emotions. Lead with joy.
Yes.
Good
Yeah.
leadership, not
Yeah.
But let the other
tyranny.
ones help when it's appropriate.
Yeah. Leadership, not tyranny.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's a good lesson. So yeah, I mean, yeah, we've spoken about so many, and it all had an impact. So I thought it was really good. I will end with I mean, Tazzy, you've already mentioned you want to see a third one. There is I got this from Jade King at the Gamer, who again on the side of maybe this wasn't great, but the fear that I think the headline was Pixar is never going to make an original film ever
Mm.
again. And I
Um,
will say, I mean, I know it's a headline and you got to get people to click, but
uh,
just sometimes you just go watch it, go watch the thing, and don't bring your
also,
things. That's not
also,
even a quote I was going to use, but yeah, go on.
because I was thinking, because I saw like the Moana 2 trailer. Obviously, that's Disney. And I was like, oh, we're really getting like a lot of sequels. And then I realized, no, we're not. There's always been sequels. It's just that we're getting more like cinema or like as we're leaning more into streaming as well, like we're more aware of them because there were three
Mhm.
Little Mermaids.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
there's a big
there
boom
were
of
three
those
Lion
Disney
Kings as
ones.
well.
Yes,
Yeah,
there were.
there were three
Everyone
like
always forgets the third one because it's like weird.
it, yeah, it was kind of not really a. It wasn't really a sequel.
No.
It was in between.
Right.
It kind of doesn't count. But we've always had sequels. We've always had continuations.
Yeah, this is Disney we're talking
This
about. So
this isn't new. There's 4 Toy Stories.
Mhm.
it's going to be a fifth one.
There's gonna be like there was a sequel to Finding Nemo. There's also been TV spin-offs of like everything. We're not getting any more sequels. I think we're just more aware of
Aware
them.
of them.
And they're better now. They're getting better. The sequels are
Yeah,
getting better.
those old Disney direct to VHS ones were very a mixed bag, let's say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about
So
anxiety.
your opinion is wrong because it's just wrong. We're not getting it's 100% wrong. Please
That's
check
right
your
because
facts and then form a new opinion.
I haven't even given you the quote, but yeah, I agree. It just seemed like an overreaction. Obviously the commercial and retreading old grounds is safer to do a sequel than to make something new. I get that. That's all there. But just this idea that because they were saying like Pixar, and I quote, wants to condense artistic expression down to the lowest common denominator, and it's heartbreaking. It's a heartbreaking thing to accept when you realize the most successful animation studio in the world is just destined to make films about talking emotions, cars, and toys for the next decade, as if they hadn't been doing that for the since
Yeah,
birth. But
yeah.
Isn't
yeah,
that kind of their
that's the
thing? Isn't
thing.
that
That's
kind
their
of
thing.
what
They've got
they?
lunch boxes and everything about that. So yeah, but like I
That's
said at the
so
beginning,
weird.
is but when the narrative is Pixar slump, Disney commercial, Disney bought Pixar, now they're just pumping out things, which is not unfair in some areas. Star Wars looking at you
Yeah.
is, yeah, but it's just, maybe I don't know if it applies or as much
I
here.
feel like we've got way more originals.
Yeah, recently we've had a
Recent,
lot of
yeah.
yeah.
Again, that's just wrong.
I guess the concern is that because this made so much money that they're gonna lean really hard into more
Into
sequels.
yeah,
Yeah, but
Yeah. Which
also,
I
so
get is
the
a concern.
but people are moaning that all the original ones were the slump, right?
Yes. Yeah,
So all
exactly.
the
Which
but
is
original ones are the
yeah.
slump, and the
Yeah.
sequels, they're just pumping out sequels for money.
we're not rational beings. It's a thing I always say. I mean, like Pinali, because you're here, I can say this again. Was where people will say they want original things, but I've been in conventions with our stuff on a table and seen to people walk by. And I'm not saying people, I'm not old people to come and walk, but come over and buy our stuff. But I've just seen the reaction to something new. Most people don't want new. Most people just want what they've
Yes.
already seen,
Mhm.
even if it looks good. And our stuff looks good. Pinelli's artwork is
Yeah,
really good.
Panelli's artwork is amazing. Like, I'm not saying that biasly, but I kind of am because
Yeah.
sexual bias, because there's new art and it's my. But before I worked with Maya Mada, I was very drawn. I think I'd seen them several times before.
Yeah.
Like
And a lot
I
of people are, but there's a difference between drawn to and I'm going to give you money for that. Because then barrier
in
comes up as like, I don't know these characters. I'm taking a risk. I don't know you, this guy behind the table.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't match up to this. This is like Japanese stuff. You don't look Japanese. So all those things come up.
yeah.
So yeah, it's just people where we're irrational beings. We say, we complain when people do sequels, but then when people do the original thing, then you say it's Pixar slump. What can you do?
Yeah. Humans are very risk-averse creatures.
Yeah.
I must say, in my defense, I don't buy known comic books. I've got more things that I don't know than
Don't
I
know.
do know.
Okay, there you go. Fair enough.
My first buy at like Comic Con that wasn't like a product was a random comic book, and I love it. So
Cool.
just gonna. I don't know why I felt the need to defend
Yeah,
it.
to share that. Well, thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Support original life.
Go indie. Cool. All right, let's put an end to this therapy session. I hope we've shared, we've got through, we've made progress. Listeners, thank you for joining us on the couch. Let us know what you think. If you've got any deep dark secrets, we didn't even get to the deep dark secrets, and
I
and
know. Oh, that was the
the vote.
bit that I forgot
Yes.
about. Was actually the vault. That was the bit I was going to bring
Yeah,
up, but
yeah.
in the extended cut.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, let us know what you think about this stories episode discussion. As you can see, we could have gone on for longer, but we want to wrap up, and then also I want to give this week's storytelling tip. Each time we do a deep dive on the podcast, I like to pull out a storytelling tip for others to consider when making their own stories. So this is a consideration from someone who also creates stories and likes to learn from the techniques or mistakes of others. So for this episode, I wanted to talk about having fun with analogies, talking about joy. So just looking at analogy, obviously this is something that Inside Out and Inside Out 2 do very well. And just thinking about analogy in storytelling. So storytelling itself is a powerful tool for shaping how we perceive the world around us, for good and for bad, depending on its use. A great technique within that is use of analogy and metaphor. So, he's as busy as a bee, it's easy as pie, they're stubborn as a mule. So it's ways of communicating complex ideas in an accessible and engaging way and creating layers of meaning that can resonate with different audiences. So the idea is you want to draw a comparison between unfamiliar concepts and more familiar ones. So you're bridging the gap between those abstract ideas about our everyday experiences, especially for those who might not be familiar with the underlying concepts. So this is from masterclass.com, who have a good description. So they say the purpose of an analogy is not merely to show, but also to explain. For this reason, an analogy is more complex than a simile or a metaphor, which only aim to show without explaining. So I feel that explaining thing is the key part. And I feel Inside Out is a masterclass, small m masterclass, in using analogy to convey complex psychological concepts in a way that is both accessible and moving as well. So their stories, I mean, Pixar's good at this. They resonate with a wide audience, including children who might not have full understanding of emotions, as well as adults who can definitely appreciate the deeper layers of meaning as early as half an hour before they saw this film. So we get the five primary emotions: joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust, that are personified as characters within the mind of an 11-year-old Riley. So that allows the audience, particularly children, to visualize and understand the role that each emotion plays in everyday life. So we see things like the memories in Riley's mind represented as glowing orbs with different colors corresponding to different emotions. In the sequel, we see puberty represented by an alarm. And it's no surprise, as I mentioned earlier, that it goes off in the dead of night when all the other emotions are asleep and in no way ready for it. So that's a good analogy for the onset of puberty. And then we see things like the sense of self that is built from the mix of memories contained within the belief system. So by doing things like this, personifying emotions, visualizing memory and personality, and creating that narrative around those concepts, it's offering those lessons, those explaining things on emotional health, personal identity, and makes it a powerful tool for viewers of all ages. Again, required watching. Just watch it and have the conversation. But we've seen examples in other stories. Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animated series, is a great concept for balance. So that analogy of balance that is explored through the elemental nations. So that represent a different aspect of nature and philosophy. So that is a really good approach that allows the story to address deep themes of like war and peace and harmony and like genocide in a way that's understandable for kids, while offering that depth for older audiences. I mean, Lord of the Rings is another good one. So the One Ring does that metaphor for power and its corrupting influences. So we see that along the whole kind of journey that they take, and it resonates across different cultures as well as ages, and gives that deep understanding of the themes of like power, temptation, and the human condition. So yeah, so some things to think about. So here are some tips to consider when potentially using an analogy and metaphor in your stories. So number one is know your audience. So you want to tailor the analogy and the metaphors you use to the understanding and the background of your intended audience. So we see in Inside Out, the team at Pixar know their audience. So the emotions brightly colored, the world around them is brightly colored. Kids can, if nothing, even if you don't get it, the kids can just watch and be entertained, and I don't know, subconsciously will stick in there. So yeah, know your audience. Number two, keep it simple. So well-chosen metaphors should simplify the concept it's describing, not complicate it. So overloading a narrative with too many metaphors as well can overwhelm the audience, and also make them funny, like Inside Out too, as well. But in general, you want to aim for clarity and ease of understanding. So the analogy should be clear and directly related to the theme or the concept being conveyed. So I really like the quirk system in My Hero Academia, where the quirks or superpowers are used as a metaphor for individual uniqueness in that society. And the story uses the powers to explore those themes and then making those complex issues relevant and understandable by the audience. Number three is consistency. It's important to keep the consistency of your analogy throughout the story. So if something is introduced, it should be woven into the narrative in a way that feels organic and coherent. So The Matrix, the first one, already talked about sequelitis, but has that metaphor of that simulated reality, and it's consistent throughout the narrative, and it helps us explore what it itself are very complex, like deep philosophical questions about reality, freedom, and even perception. And then last one, number four, is be creative. So don't be afraid to do something different and innovate with those metaphors, but just always make sure they're grounded in like the narrative context. So the cat bus in My Neighbor Totoro like serves as a metaphor for the magical and whimsical world of childhood, but it's very creative. I've only seen one cat bus, so yeah, think about that. You can do things different. Just make sure they're grounded in the story. So yeah, so some things to think about if you're using analogy in your own story. If you are, let us know what you think about the tip. You can jump in our Discord. You can also send us an email, studio77@mymatter.com. That is the tip for this episode. Tazziii, let's check in with our guest.
Yeah, so Pinali, other than making, my dreams come true along with Nigel, is making me into a character in a comic book. What other things are you working on?
I've just been doing like bits and pieces here and there at the moment. I'm not really working on anything like big. I'm doing a lot of costume work, so I'm going to a convention in 3 weeks, I think it is, in Denver. So I'll be at Denver. I'll be there in my costume and my partner will be in theirs. So
Mm.
that's mostly what I've been doing. Nothing really exciting. Except for the upcoming Mayamada comic,
Yes,
obviously.
that is the very exciting. Yeah, for sure. I was going to say one day we need to come to you to make a suit. I just need to find a sponsor big enough that can give
Yeah,
us enough money and
they
we can
take a
just,
lot of time. That's why they're
yeah.
expensive.
So okay, well, if so the sponsors out there somewhere, we're gonna find them and then we're gonna make that happen. But yeah, otherwise is the comic. So look out for that. Thank you for joining us. Usually we say like we'll put the links in, but people know the links. Like it's just mymatter.com, and then we'll have that when it is ready in the autumn, I guess now. So yeah, you'll see it come together as it does. But Pinali, thank you for taking the time and joining us for the first episode back of I was going to say new season, since the mid-season break. There's still season 6, but thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this episode of Story X Story, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a future episode where we'll be recording through to December. So for the rest of season 6, think about giving us a 5-star rating and review because that helps us reach new listeners and fans of story discussions. So we're story creators ourselves. You can discover our manga universe online while you wait for the new Against All Odds story. We've got our existing manga titles, Samurai Chef, Hot Lunch, Serious, and Serious Through the Fog, available at our online store and then later at events like the Festival of the Girl as well. So we'll bring them there too. And you can join our Discord today. You can also consider becoming a member to support the work that we do at My Matter. And as we put together the comic, you get an early peek into the process, essentially. You can also take part in our Do I Look Like a Gamer video game representation campaign, which is underway. So it's a yearly initiative for diversity and inclusion, and we have a bunch of plans in store. So we've got Game Jam event coming, and we've got some other appearances. I mentioned Festival of the Girl. We'll be back at Comic-Con at the end of October. So a lot of chances to get involved in that, and I feel like this year will be a good one for building momentum as we go into next year as well. As for the podcast, we release new episodes on Thursdays that include creator interviews, video game discussions, and deep dives into stories across pop culture. You can always give us a shout directly. Our email address is studio77@mymatter.com, and our website with links to subscribe is mymatter.com/storyxstory. So thank you for tuning in, and until next time, stay safe, and remember, untainted is the best way to watch any story, really. So keep that in mind. Take care, everyone.